Hey everybody, Chris and Josh here coming at you with the third episode of the Dueling Banjos Sportscast. Hope everybody liked last week's episode. We got a few things to talk about this week. The sports world wasn't buzzing as much as it usually is, but we would like to talk a little bit about basketball this week. We got the playoffs going on. Some key matchups to look into. Should be pretty interesting. And we got baseball kicking off. You know, we're 2 weeks into the season. Just going to talk a little bit about the teams that are hot right now and some of the more intricate parts of baseball and what we should be looking for.
Yeah, this week should be pretty exciting. Got a lot of stuff going on. But, you know, first off, man, how was your week?
Oh, the week was good, you know, a little bit busy, but it's always busy, so, you know, can't really complain about that too much. You know, driving around, listening to some talk radio, and just cruising along. How about you, man?
Not bad at all. Glad not to be at work today. Glad to be here with you, talking some sports. So let's get started.
Yeah, let's get started, man. I'm gonna throw the ball to your court, as it were, and let you talk a little bit about the playoffs we got going on in basketball.
Yeah, so we'll start out east and talk the games there. I think one of the cool things about the playoffs this year is there's probably one bad series in these playoffs where the Nets have no chance at all to win that series, and I think the rest of the games are going to be fun to watch. I think all the series are going to go deep into them. And it'll be fun to see what goes on out there.
It's funny that you say that because the Nets were kind of a back-end team. You know, they just happened to make it to the playoffs, and everybody was really excited because they haven't been to the playoffs in quite a while. But you're saying they got no chance to win?
No, they're playing the Hawks. The Hawks are the first seed. As you said, the Nets 8 seed kind of backing into the playoffs with the Pacers not being able to take care of business on there. This should be a quick series. I would give it maybe 5 games, maybe. But that's probably about it. Maybe Brooklyn sneaks one in at home. Atlanta's just too dominant. Been shooting the ball well. All their starters are in the plus and RPM. Too much for Brooklyn to handle. I don't think Brooklyn's here to play ball. I think they're kind of shocked that they're in the playoffs. I don't think they wanted to win that game. They wanted to get a high lottery pick. So I don't give this series much of a chance at all.
Well, what do you say about the arguments, though? Atlanta has been playing very good this season, but they don't really have a very veteran team with a lot of big-name guys on it. Do you think that they're going to be able to handle the pressure of the playoffs?
Yeah, I think the first round is a no-brainer. I don't know if Atlanta gets through the second round, depending on who they play. But you have a lot of good role players on the Hawks right now. Jeff Teague is a fairly good point guard that you can depend on showing up and doing what he does, taking care of the ball on there. You got Horford and Millsap out there, and then you got Kyle Korver at the shooting guard. So there's no big names and nobody really dominant on that team, but I think their play throughout the year has shown they're willing to spread the ball around and score points wherever they can.
Well, I saw that you tweeted out in a response this week that you thought that an interesting matchup was going to be the Bulls and the Bucks in this first round. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on why that is.
So the reason I said that, and I still think Chicago comes out of this series winning. I don't know if there's much argument on that, but I think the Bucks are probably going to give the Bulls a little bit rougher time than maybe people would give them credit for. The Bucks have a lot of young players. I think not having the playoff experience will hurt them, especially against a team like the Bulls, who are tried and true roster in the playoffs, and that's without Derrick Rose. So I think the Bucks are going to play their game, play half-court basketball, and just try to slow down the Bulls, make sure they don't get fast breaks, no fast break points on them, and just kind of control the tempo of the game. And I think if you can do that against Chicago, now Chicago plays the same style of ball on offense typically, so it'll be interesting to see what they do in the playoffs with Rose. The other thing I'm concerned about for the Bulls is just injury history. You got Joakim Noah coming back after being out for a while with an injury, and of course Derrick Rose coming back. So it'll be interesting to see. I know Thibodeau wanted a little bit more time with Noah and Rose and all of his starters on the court at the same time before the playoffs started, and he didn't get a chance to do that. So to me, it'd just be interesting to see how the Bulls play with Rose back in the playoffs.
Well, and certainly they've had their trouble with injuries for the past 2 seasons at least. And I don't really know much about the Bucks. I'm not as big into basketball as you are, but it seems like if I had to pick one team over the other, I'm going to pick the Bulls just because they've got some star players on their team.
Yeah, and Rose is that star player, and of course you got Noah on there, but Thibodeau has a way of getting the best out of his players, even his role players, and you've got a lot of guys coming off the Bulls bench that make a huge difference. Nikola Mirotic is a great pace setter guy. He can score points. He can shoot the 3 ball. He's not afraid to get into the paint a little bit. He's actually, the games I've watched, he's a fairly good passer. He's a young guy, so he still makes mistakes, but he's good at passing the ball around when he needs to. Aaron Brooks has been playing out of his mind for what he is for that team. He's still got Taj Gibson back there. And I think the most important 2 players for the Bulls this series is going to be Jimmy Butler and Pau Gasol. If those guys can play solid defense like Tibbs always gets out of the Bulls players, but at the same time on the offensive side, help facilitate the ball with Derrick Rose and score points, I think they're going to come away fairly well against the Bucks. The injury history just scares me, though.
Yeah, I'm interested to watch this series now just to see how your predictions come out. Are you calling a Game 6 or Game 7?
I would say this one probably goes 6. I think the Bucks probably get one at home, and I think they'll probably stun the Bulls with maybe getting one in Chicago. But I think the Bulls come around with that playoff experience and put it away in 6.
So there was a lot of uprise in the amount of people looking for LeBron James to be getting the MVP these last couple days. Not really sure why that is. I'm certain that Steph Curry and James Harden were number 1 and number 2 in the running. But anyway, with that being said, what do you think about the Cavs-Celtics game?
That series is going to be a good one to watch too, I hope. Kind of the same thing when we're talking about the Bulls-Bucks series. On one hand, you've got the Cavaliers who have LeBron James and J.R. Smith and Timofey Mozgov who've been to the playoffs, who've made those runs before for the Cavs that bring that kind of veteran leadership and experience to guys like Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love. Kevin Love hasn't made it into the playoffs, so this is his first go-around, so he's not experienced either. But you've got those guys there that know how it's done. And the Celtics, kind of the same thing as the Bucks, just a young team, a lot of role players. They don't have that big star. So I think the Cavs probably put this away in 5. I think you'll see the Celtics get one at home, but the Cavs are going to take this one fairly quickly.
It seems like that the Celtics were in the kind of the same position as the Nets in this bracket. It seems like they were another one of those teams that kind of snuck in, which is good for them. I know that's what they wanted to do, but I'm not entirely sure that they have what it takes to get to the second round, especially since they're going up against the Cavaliers. anytime you're playing LeBron James, you gotta kind of pull for that team because he's gonna perform really well in the clutch.
Yeah, go back and look at the last couple regular season games between these two teams, and the Celtics outscored the Cavs 216 to 168. So, but we know the Cavs are probably resting players going into the playoffs. Probably not taking a couple games with the Celtics that seriously. The Celtics could have easily just walked into this. It's the East. It's a weak conference. Everybody knows that. The Celtics could have just walked into this and accepted, hey, we're in the playoffs. We didn't expect to be here. But I don't think that's where they're going to stop. I think they'll give the Cavs problems in a couple games and maybe surprise them on effort. But I think the Cavs just have too much going on.
Well, with that being said, here's an interesting thought. Which do you think is going to be more important for this series between the two teams? Do you think defense is going to play a bigger role, or do you think the offense will play a bigger role?
I think with the Cavs, it's going to be both. Obviously, you got to play both sides of the ball to win. But I think just simply stopping young Celtics players from scoring the ball and getting big runs on them, because that's what's going to drive a young playoff team is scoring points, running up and down the floor. I think the Cavs playing solid defense is going to shut that down. And I think once they shut that down, the Celtics won't have much energy or life to them. It'll be interesting to see what happens, though. Obviously, we know the Cavs can score, so that shouldn't be an issue. It's just a matter of keeping the Celtics from finding a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. I think if you see, these young guys on the Celtics, if you give Avery Bradley, Marcus Smart, those guys a chance, they see that they have a chance. I don't think that's going to work out well for the Cavs. So shutting them down on defense is probably their top priority.
That's sounds like the best way to go in most cases. Seems like that's a recipe for winning in basketball, and we like to see that as fans. But we got one more game, one more series left in the East Conference. That's the Raptors and the Wizards. What are your thoughts on that one?
So we watched the end of that game today, and the Wizards pulled it out. Toronto played them just like I thought they would. It was fun to watch both these teams kind of run up and down the court and see that the Raptors being the young team, same thing, young team, seeing them be able to get the ball into the paint when they need to, seem be able to shoot from the outside, get all of those little things done was fun. Obviously, they need to pick it up on defense. And the Wizards, I don't know if the Wizards are that great of an offensive team, and I think they're slipping a little bit coming down the stretch in the regular season. Kind of shows that they're flawed. The two big guys on the team haven't showed up in Gortat and Nene. They haven't shown up well coming down the stretch, and I think for the Wizards to continue into the playoffs, those guys need to kick it up a gear. But I see the Wizards probably pulling this one out.
Well, and we, like you said, we saw this game, and it looked it was interesting to see the Raptors come from behind towards the end of the game. They kind of showed a lot of grit in there. Coming back, they were down, quite a few points and came back to tie it late. I'm personally think that the Raptors might give the Wizards just a little more than they bargained for.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. If the Raptors come out on top in this series, that wouldn't surprise me. I think this is probably in the East. This is obviously the cleanest matchup. You're looking at a 4 and a 5, and you could have flipped those on there. It's this series is truly a toss up. So it wouldn't surprise me if the Raptors came and took it back. Like I said, young team, kind of the same thing with the Celtics. They see a little bit of light of day in this series, and they could probably be a problem.
Okay, well, that was a pretty good analysis of the Eastern Conference. Is there anything else that you want to add on those 8 teams that we got playing?
No, I think the games have to play themselves out, and and after this weekend, getting all the first games in, we'll get a better shot of what's going on there. I think the most interesting series, and of course everybody's going to be watching them, but it's going to be the Cavs, seeing what they do. I think last week we talked a little bit about how, if Kevin Love's going to accept his role on that team, if he finds a role on that team. LeBron is going to have a lot of say in that. There's a lot of talk, the last couple of weeks, LeBron not trusting Kevin Love and this and that and the other. But Kevin Love's there. He's a starter. You gotta fit him in somehow.
That's just not a dynamic that you really want for your team when you're going into the playoffs. I mean, talking about dismay within the group of players that's supposedly going to be, trying to get to the championship for you, I feel like they should have had that figured out, earlier, not later, and had a team that was playing well together.
Yeah, it's been kind of fun to watch that go on, to see how that dynamic develops, and it really hasn't developed. I mean, they've gone through a full season, and I know it maybe takes a full season and some playoffs and an off season to kind of figure out what you want to do, but it's interesting that a starting star like Kevin Love doesn't have a role on that team. It's kind of weird to see him out there, and it's kind of game to game what his role is. And it's fun to watch LeBron play the point guard position primarily on offense. It's fun to kind of see how that's going to go down, how he facilitates the ball. He loves playing with Timothy Mozgov, which is kind of fun to see LeBron dish it into the paint and give Mozgov some dunks and some easy layups in there. So we'll see what happens.
But don't you think that LeBron, of all people, being the seasoned veteran star that he is, shouldn't he find a way to fit Kevin Love into the system? I mean, if he's the go-to guy on the team, he should understand the dynamic and try and fix it for himself. It seems like it's kind of a mistake on his part.
Yeah, well, that's what's interesting about it is you look at LeBron. He's won titles. He knows what's going on. He can run the floor. He calls the plays. And it's interesting to note that Kevin Love still hasn't found that position. Well, who's that more on? Is it Kevin Love not understanding what LeBron wants to do on offense on the floor? Is it LeBron not including Kevin Love in that discussion, asking him where he feels comfortable playing, what he feels comfortable doing on that team? I find it hard to believe it would be LeBron being the problem in this. I think maybe that's more of a reflection of Kevin Love and his attitude playing on that team.
Well, it'll be interesting to watch, that's for sure, and only time will tell how that whole dynamic plays itself out.
Yeah, the next month or so in the NBA is going to be really fun to watch. Let's kick it over to kind of what you like to do, and let's talk a little bit of baseball. We're a couple weeks in now, and I kind of want a Chris power ranking for the MLB right now.
Well, I don't know if you can really call them power rankings yet, but we have something close to that. Looking at the top 10 teams right now, it's kind of a mix. Number one, you've got Detroit, the Tigers, coming in at a 9-1 record. They're playing really, really well. Then you got St. Louis, who I absolutely can't stand, in number two.
You almost threw up saying that.
I can't stand them. The good news is their record is 6-3, but so they're not doing as well as the other teams. But their ERA for so far is sitting at a 2.0, which is, as you know, a really good ERA for a team. Number three, we've got the Mets. They're sitting at 8-3, which is kind of surprising. I know they've signed a bunch of people in the offseason. They took Michael Kadire from us, and that really kind of bummed me out. But their starting pitching has been really, really good, and I think they might be a team to watch this year, just based on that. Number four, we got San Diego, the Padres. They're coming in at 7-4, which is pretty good. They've got a 2.70 ERA this far, and that's actually really good. They spent a lot of money on their team in the offseason. just to try and play with the caliber of team that the Dodgers pay for, and looks like it's paying off right now. Number 5, we got Oakland. Now Oakland is an interesting one because they actually have a losing record. They're 5-6, but their ERA so far is 2.88, which is an excellent ERA, and they actually have a really, really good starting lineup. Maybe they have Drew Pomeranz, who they got from the Rockies, and he didn't play very well down here, so he's kind of, in my opinion, the weak link on their starting lineup. But as far as the other pitchers go, they've got a great starting 5. Number 6, we have Colorado. They're sitting at 7-3. They're actually at a 2.9 ERA, which for them is really, really good. We'll talk a little bit more about the Rockies later, but I would like to note that 2.9 for the starting line, or for the ERA for the pitchers that they have, is kind of impressive. Number 7, we have the Astros in Houston. They're 4-6, but they have a 3.06 ERA, and they're kind of a surprise too. They have a losing record, which is a bummer for them, but with that kind of an ERA from their starting lineup down there in the AL, I think they're going to be halfway decent this year.
They're hitting under 200 right now.
That's their problem. That's is that they're just not there yet. I don't really think that they were ready to move to the AL for one, but that's up to them. But number 8, we got Washington, the Nationals. They're at 5-6 with a 3.14 ERA, which actually really surprises me, and I would have never thought that, because I think they have one of the, if not strongest, starting rotations in baseball right now. You're talking Max Scherzer, Jordan Zimmerman, you got Steven Strasburg, you got Gio Gonzalez and Doug Fister. That's a scary lineup to have to face, almost to the point of who would you rather have to hit against. I'm going to go with none, because they're all really, really good pitchers.
Yeah, Fister's easily a 2 or 3 on most teams, right?
If not a 2 or a 1. I mean, if I put him on the Rockies right now, I'm throwing him number 1,
I could put you on the Rockies, and if you're pitching, you're probably number 1.
Well, that may be, but I'm just thinking, I wouldn't want to have to face that starting rotation, because you're just not going to get a break. But it is a little bit, concerning that they do have a 3.14 ERA so far. Now, that could just be early in the season. Come May, June, July, they may hit their stride and knock that down to a 1-something, and that'll be interesting to see. Number 9 is the Pittsburgh Pirates. They're at 4-6 as well, so they don't have that great of a record with the 3.24 ERA. I know that they were kind of coming off some hard times last year. It seems like the last couple years they've just been kind of hanging out right on the cusp, but not able to get there. And I know that you kind of like to follow the Pirates just a little bit, so it'll be interesting to watch them. I think they're going to have a bounce back season again this year as well.
Yeah, their bats are terrible, kind of like the Astros. They're hitting 228 right now.
Yeah, and McCutcheon's not giving us the performance that he did last year. He's kind of starting off real sluggish, which is another one of those, could he come back and get hot and just go nuts? I mean, it can happen, but we'll have to see. And then last in my rankings here, we got number 10, which is the Kansas City Royals. And, as the Royals were in the Super Bowl. Not the Super Bowl. They were in the World Series last year. And they, lost to the Giants. But coming up, they're sitting at 8-2 right now, which is an excellent, record for any point. And they've got a 3.27 ERA, which is good. But they do have some holes in their starting rotation. I don't know that they'll be in the playoffs again this year. Just they're going to have to firm some things up if they want to continue to be right there in the conversation.
9 home runs in 6 games is what they've pounded out to start the season, and they're hitting .327 right now. I think we see a little bit of the hitting being kind of like the Rockies, where you got a hot bat, but you got to back that up with some defense. Can you hit your way to the playoffs?
No, you really can't. And we know that because our home team, the Rockies, they've tried to do that for the last 10 years, and it's got them absolutely nowhere. Now, that's not to say it could never happen, but if you don't have starting pitching, you're just not going to make it in the MLB. It's not going to happen because as many times as your bats, are going to get you through a game, if not double the times, your pitching is going to knock you out of a game.
Well, let's talk. Let's break that down a little bit more. Let's go into the starting lineups. Let's go a little bit more in depth in that, and tell me what you see there.
Well, starting pitching, as I was telling you, if I had to pick, the Nationals have the just scariest starting rotation, I think. Once again, Scherzer, Zimmerman, Strasburg, Gonzalez, and Pfister. Now, that's not to say that it's not impenetrable pitching, but if those guys get on a roll, it's going to be really tough. The other team that I think is once again St. Louis. They're perennial, pitching guys. They got Wainwright, they got Lynn, they got Lackey, Wacha, Carlos Martinez. I mean, those guys just always seem to pull through when they need to. So they're coming in number 2, especially when they're throwing a 2.0 ERA right now. That's pretty tough to look past. San Diego, like I said, went and spent all that money on their players in the offseason, and their starting lineup is okay. Shields, Ross, Cashner, Morrow, and Despine, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, those guys, they're pretty solid. They're going to be okay. A lot better than, let's say, the Rockies, who are really struggling. Kyle Kendricks lost the last 2. He's kind of been getting hammered. Jordan Lyles, who's probably my favorite of the starting lineups there, he's been pitching pretty solid, but he does get himself into trouble. Tyler Matzik, another one of those. He's an okay lefty, but he does get into a lot of trouble and he walks a lot of people. Christian Bergman, he had his first start the other day. He seems to be more of a fill-in guy for the time being until De La Rosa comes back. And then you got Eddie Butler, who may or may not stay on the starting rotation. I think their pitching is in a little bit of trouble this year. So that bullpen's going to need to stay tight to give them any shot. The last starting lineup I really want to talk about is the Detroit Tigers, who I think are going to have a really, really good year again. They've got another starting lineup that's doing very well. They have a 1.82 ERA. Price, you got Anibal Sanchez, Simon Green, and Lobstein's in there. Justin Verlander, who of course is their ace, is actually out right now. He's on the DL with a tricep strain. And they're still doing really, really well, have a low ERA. Another team that I would definitely watch over the course of the season, probably going to have another good year.
I'm kind of surprised you didn't mention the Dodgers in this. You didn't have them in your top 10, and you didn't talk about their starting pitching. What do you think they're going through this year?
The Dodgers are interesting. They definitely they have a lot of money spent on that team. They've got Clayton Kershaw, who we both know is Cy Young winner last year. He's absolutely lights out. Played very well last night against the Colorado Rockies. Struck out 10 or 11 people, something like that. He's good. I just don't know that their pitching is good all the way through. You're going to have trouble in their first and second with Greinke in there as well. But as far as it goes, I think they're beatable as long as you get to them early. Kershaw had his first 2 outings where he was really getting beat up by the Padres and the I can't remember who the other team was, but he got roughed up quite a bit. So, the Dodgers are a team that you're going to watch out for, but I think they're like last year and the year before, they're going to come up short.
All right, let's get out of the pitching. Let's talk about the bats, the exciting part of the game. What are you seeing there?
We've had some really interesting numbers come up through the first 10 games of the season. Adrian Gonzalez is first baseman for the Dodgers. He's been very impressive. He's actually batting a .550 right now, which is insane, especially 10 games in. He's definitely somebody you're going to watch out for. If he can stay consistent throughout the season, that's going to be a gold bat to have. Second is one that I would never have thought is actually DJ LeMahieu of the Colorado Rockies, second baseman. He's batting a .474, and he's hit in every game this season, which is pretty impressive for him.
I like to point out the Rockies have been at home for 1 series. So for all those people that say, well, yeah, he's hitting at Coors, that was 3 games.
Oh, yeah, no, they've been doing very well batting-wise on the road this year. They're 6-1 on the road, which is a good start. Then we have Inciarte, he's batting .395. Lucas Duda, he's got a .381, and Joey Votto, .378. Those are more normal numbers, but you look at a .474 and a .550, and those numbers are that's really good for this start of the season. In the AL, we've got not as high in numbers, but more consistent. Iglesias, he's hitting .484. Lorenzo Cain, he's at .462. Mike Trout, .444. And I'd just like to throw out a congratulations to Mike Trout. He's the youngest player ever to hit 100 home runs and 100 stolen bases both in the same career. So congratulations to him. Miguel Cabrera, he's at a .439, and Prince Fielder is at a .419. Another guy I'm not really that much of a fan of, Prince Fielder, but he's definitely a hitter when it comes down to it.
What do you think lineup-wise? Who's got the deadliest batting lineup in the league right now?
It's actually kind of funny because I think there's a few teams. The Rockies are one of them. We can't argue that they have a distinct lineup that's really, really tough to face. But I think that the Dodgers have probably one of the tougher lineups to hit against. We definitely saw that last night. And I also think that the Padres are going to have a really good lineup this year too. Now those are all NL West teams, but I think that in the NL West, that's what they have to do. They started stacking all these lineups so that they could play against the Giants, who have won the World Series twice in the last 5 years, 3 times in the last 5 years. So with that comes lineups that are really hard to hit against.
Let's talk about something that maybe is a little bit unexpected this year. Let's talk about how A-Rod's hitting.
I'm pretty excited about A-Rod. We talked about it last week. It was one of those debates as to should they have taken him back, shouldn't they have, he's a cheater, all that good stuff. Regardless of what's happened before, he just hit 2 home runs yesterday for the Yankees. What a great bat to have. I'm sure that the Yankees are really happy that they signed him back. And it's nice to see a player like that come back from all this controversy and just say, you know what, I'm going to hit home runs because that's what I do.
Yeah, it's funny to think that A-Rod's maybe the one bright, shiny spot in the Yankees season on the field. You got all of the off-the-field stuff, and people think a lot of different things about A-Rod. It's kind of poetic to see that A-Rod's maybe the one good thing going on for the Yankees right now.
Well, especially since they lost Jeter. Jeter was such a instrumental piece for that team for so many years. he was the good guy. He was the clean Derek Jeter who did nothing wrong. And now that he's gone, they have to find a new identity.
Do you think the Yankees would take back the Cano trade if they had a chance?
Oh, yeah. Why? I mean, if they had the chance, they probably would take it back in a heartbeat.
All right. So I wanted to go back real quick. You mentioned Mike Trout, and you threw congratulations out to him. That's another thing that I find interesting. The Angels getting Pujols a few years back, and who knew this kid was going to come out of nowhere and do what he's doing for that organization?
Yeah, Mike Trout was. I mean, he's just a beast, and he's got the attitude and the likability, and he backs everything up with his play. I mean, he's hitting home runs, he's making plays. But above all, I think it's nice to see these younger kids come in here and become the face of a franchise, just like Bryce Harper did, just like this Chris Bryant kid is doing. It's really what everybody wants to see in baseball, especially the younger generations. They want to see these younger kids come up and just play like they're in a video game as much as they can.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think it's good for the game to see these young guys come out, and you can actually tell that they truly love playing the game. You know, it's old school baseball a little bit with kind of a new cutting edge attitude on there. And you know, when guys like Trout and Harper take the field, you know they're in it to win it, and they're having fun doing it. So it's going to be fun watching these guys grow up in the next 10 years or so.
Well, the only thing that I can hope for them is that they stay that way and they don't get themselves into trouble. And Bryce Harper's definitely cooled down a lot since he first came in. Trout hasn't cooled down at all. But that's the only thing is these kids are getting so much pressure put on them in the beginning of their careers. Is I just hope that they don't get into, start to let the pressure get to them and make mistakes.
Yeah, that's one thing about baseball and the players in the league is you don't see them getting into a ton of trouble the way you see in the NFL or the NBA on there. And I think if these guys, specifically Trout and Harper, you haven't seen them get into trouble too much yet. All of Harper's stuff is mostly on the field and all those unwritten rules in baseball, that type of thing. But not being in trouble away from the park has been really good for them, and I think as they get older, the chances of that happening become less and less. And I think that's great for the game.
Yep, for sure, man. It's nothing like going out to the baseball field and getting to watch a game and seeing your favorite player like Mike Trout or Bryce Harper and getting yourself a bag of peanuts and just having a
what?
good...
Hey, what?
What?
A bag of peanuts?
Yeah, a bag of peanuts.
You're going to go to the game and eat a bag of peanuts?
Don't you eat peanuts when you're at a baseball game?
No, I'm pretty sure America chooses the sunflower seed at a baseball game.
No, only the players eat sunflower seeds. When you're in the stands, you gotta eat peanuts.
Why would you eat peanuts? They get stuck in your teeth, first of all.
They're delicious.
Well, they're okay. They're not a sunflower seed.
Wait, are we arguing about peanuts versus sunflower seeds right now?
Well, we didn't mean for it to happen, but if you're going to say something ridiculous like go to the game and eat peanuts, it's going to happen.
Peanuts, you unwrap them, you get to throw the shell on the ground, pop a couple peanuts in, grab another one. They're nice and salty. They go perfect with any of your drinks that you're having, specifically a beer.
You can't enjoy a beer while you're eating peanuts because it takes both hands and your mouth. You got 3 appendages working on one snack. Sunflower seeds, you pop in the mouth, you crack it, you spit it, you're done.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure they cut the sides of your mouth open, and you get all of that work to pop open a sunflower seed for this little tiny kernel.
Yeah, but nobody dies from sunflower seed. Peanuts kill people.
Yeah, but you should know if you're allergic to peanuts and don't eat them.
You're endangering people around you.
Well, they shouldn't be there.
I can't even believe we're arguing.
Hey, you know what? the greatest song of a baseball game is? I don't know, 7th inning stretch. And you know what they say? Buy me some peanuts. They don't say buy me some sunflower seeds.
Okay, so your great-great-great-granddaddy ate peanuts at a baseball game. This is 2015. The sunflower seed is here.
Hey, I'm pretty sure the old generations had a pretty good handle on the way things run. And they were all eating peanuts. So I'm pretty sure peanuts is the way to go.
All right, man. Well, we're going to take this argument off the air, too. I can't even believe we're having this discussion. You know what? Just hit us up at FR Cowboys or at Sporting Banjos and the YouTube channel, too, and let us know what side you're in on that, peanuts or sunflower seeds.
This is ridiculous. There's no way that sunflower seeds are better than peanuts, but we would like to hear what you guys have to think, and peanuts is going to win, but you know what? Let's see.
Dude, Cracker Jacks is in that song, too. Do you crave a box of Cracker Jacks at a baseball game?
All the time.
We've been to plenty
If you don't like Cracker Jacks, you can get the hell out of here. That's all I'm saying. All right, guys, so peanuts, sunflower seeds, we'll see how that goes. But I also want to see how the Western Conference of the NBA playoffs is going to go as well. So we're going to go back to Josh over here. Just let him break some of these games down for the West. First off, we got the Blazers and the Grizzlies. What do you think, man?
So the West is pretty stacked, right? There's not a team in the West that probably doesn't deserve to be there. This is the 4 or 5 matchup. It's the same as the 4 or 5 matchup in the Eastern Conference. Kind of a toss-up game. You really can't tell what's going to happen going on there. Most projections have the Blazers winning the series. I think that's maybe a little bit of stretch. I know the Blazers shoot the ball well. They play all aspects of the game fairly well on there. One of the things that's cool about this particular matchup is both teams are in the positive in points per possession, offensively and defensively. So that should make for a good series on there. Damian Lillard running the point for the Trailblazers with Aldridge and Robin Lopez. Robin Lopez has been a great player this year for that team on there. A follow they got from the Denver Nuggets. Originally he was coming off the bench. Now he's a starting shooting guard for the Blazers. So I think it'd be a fun series to watch. I love the way Memphis plays ball. Hard defense, getting into the paint, getting the ball to Marc Gasol, having Zach Randolph pick up rebounds like he's a vacuum. Mike Conley running point. Tony Allen. The whole starting roster for the Grizzlies is pretty solid. I think this one's probably going to come down 7 games. I'm actually going to say the Grizzlies take this one, but again, it's a coin flip. If the Trailblazers won, it wouldn't be a surprise.
I kind of think the Grizzlies are going to win, and mostly because they've been right there all year long. They've been kind of an annoying team to have to play, and I think they're going to do the exact same thing to the Blazers.
Yeah, the other kind of interesting thing about the NBA, the Trailblazers actually had a weaker regular season record than the Grizzlies. It just happened they get the higher seed at 4 just because of the division they play in the Northwest.
So that's the Blazers Grizzlies. What do you think about the Clippers Spurs? I personally think the Spurs have got this under control. I don't think they're going to have any problems against the Clippers. But what do you think?
Yeah, again, a lot of projections actually have the Clippers taking the series. I don't know how many times we're going to do this. Year after year after year, people want to count the Spurs out. Oh, they're old. It's time for this dynasty to be done. Even after Duncan and the guys retire, I'm going to give it a couple years after that. You just can't count the Spurs out, especially with a guy like Kawhi Leonard on the Spurs is able to score almost at will sometimes. He's a plus 7-8 when he's in the game. counting the Spurs out to me is a little bit ridiculous. I love watching them play. I know a lot of analysts, it's old school basketball, and some people find it boring. There's the stuff where Popovich likes to foul the bad free throw shooters. I think they just play the game really well, old school. The other thing is with having all the international players that the Spurs have, I think it gives them an advantage going into hostile environments. And I'm not sure playing in Los Angeles at Staples Center's that much of a home court advantage for the Clippers.
Well, when it comes down to it, don't you have to kind of go with not only the veteran leadership of that team, but the coach? I mean, Popovich is such a good coach that I'm going to go with that team every time simply because of their coach.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny to see the way this played out. The Spurs falling all the way to 6. Had they won their last regular season game, and I forget who was it against, they would have been the 2nd seed. So this matchup wouldn't even be happening if the Spurs would have showed up that last game on there. But I'm not sure it matters too much to Pop. I mean, it would be nice to have the home court advantage through the playoffs until they got to the conference finals, if that's where they get to.
Well, going back to the veteran leadership, I want to throw in there that if I had to take my choice between Tim Duncan or Blake Griffin, I'm going to go with Tim Duncan every time. Blake Griffin's a good player, but he's not the guy that you're looking to at the last seconds of the game when you got to make the shot. But I'd give that to Duncan every time. So I just think the Spurs are going to walk away with this one, maybe even 4 or 5 games.
Yeah, Blake's not quite there yet. He's definitely improved his game. He's a much more all-around player than he has been in the past couple years. But you're right. If it was between him and Duncan, Ginobili and Parker, those guys on there, I don't know if you give the Clippers much of a run in terms of leadership.
I forgot all about Ginobili, man. He's a tough guy to play against, and man, you just got too many stars on that team for LA to come in and just give them too much of a challenge.
Yeah, they just play team basketball, right? They're not afraid to pass the ball around. They don't care who's scoring, that's for sure, on there. And to have a guy like Ginobili coming off the bench along with Marco Bellinelli, that's a huge lift to the Spurs, especially when you're looking at the Clippers bench. You got Big Baby Davis in there. You got Jamal Crawford, who's a pretty decent player. Hedo Turkoglu is in there, and then you got Austin Rivers. Austin Rivers has actually started to play a lot better than he has the past couple seasons, and it helps when your dad's the coach to get some playing time, get a little bit of experience. But if that's what it takes for the Clippers to maybe find somebody that can come off the bench and do what Chris Paul does to some degree, I guess that's a win.
Well, Chris Paul, he might be the monkey wrench in all of it. He might give the Clippers a little bit of an edge that just to get them a little bit further. But what do you think? I mean, is he going to play enough of a role to make it happen?
Well, he doesn't really have a choice, right? When you're looking at the starting lineup for the Clippers, RPM wise, he's at a plus 8.3. And the next closest player is DeAndre Jordan at 3.8, and they're just feeding him the ball in the paint and letting him take care of business. So those are high percentage shots. So yeah, I think Chris Paul has no option but to show up.
Yeah, and the question would be then is how long can he sustain that? Can he make that last over 5 games? And that might be pretty tough against a tough team like San Antonio.
Yeah, the way Pops has those guys playing defense, rotating in and out. With coverage, I don't think Chris Paul. You'll probably see one really, really good game from Chris Paul and a couple of ones where he's facilitating well and doing the right stuff. But I don't think he can keep it up to beat the Spurs.
Well, the next 2 matchups that we have are ones that I'm really excited about, specifically because we're talking about the MVP race, and the next 2 teams are in that. We have the Rockets at the Mavs. This one's kind of an exciting one. I'm interested to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, it'll be a good series. The Rockets coming in as a 2nd seed and the Mavs coming in as a 7th seed. I think when you look at the Mavericks, they're still a fundamentally good basketball team, but I don't know if they have what it takes. you have to wonder if they would redo the Rajon Rondo trade. I think what it's going to take for the Mavs to even have a shot in the series is having Rondo do what he does best, and that's facilitating the basketball and finding open shots for other guys, creating that space on the floor.
Well, but Rondo hasn't really been fitting into that team as well as you would think that he should. Do you think they're going to have that figured out by then?
No, I don't think so at all, and that's kind of what I'm saying is Rondo needs to have the ability to play his style of basketball for what he does best. And I think sometimes in his own head he feels like he's got to chuck up shots that maybe he shouldn't be taking and try to take that team on his back. I don't think it'll work out. I don't think he's there next year. It'll be interesting to see what he does. It's hard to count out Dallas 100% when we got Dirk Nowitzki there and Tyson Chandler back in the lineup with them. It's hard to count them out with that, but I think the Rockets just have too much going on, especially with Dwight Howard coming back in. Right now, he hasn't played much this season, but right now he's a positive 3-2 when he's on the floor. So he's contributing a little bit, and there's going to be a lot to be said about his defense.
Well, and we can't count out that, as we know, James Harden has been playing out of his mind, and that's why he's in the MVP race. If he continues, he's going to be tough. I mean, that team's going to be hard to stop.
Yeah, and they've got Jason Terry running the point right now for them. And that can take some of that pressure off of Harden if he's shooting well. Right now, he's not anywhere near the player he was a couple years ago. But I think you're right. James Harden's just going to be too much. First round of the playoffs. I don't think Dallas has what it takes to be able to stop Harden and what the Rockets want to do.
Well, and one thing I've been noticing, and correct me if I'm wrong, but with Dwight Howard back and James Harden playing well, it just seems like some of these teams are more cohesive than other teams. They're playing with each other better than, and James Harden has been taking a lot of the games on his back. But if they can start working together. The way that the Mavs aren't, it just seems like there shouldn't be any problems for maybe even a 4-0 win in this series.
Yeah, if that series went 4 games and that was it, that wouldn't surprise me. I think Dallas probably gets one in there. I think it'll be a 5-game series, but yeah, I think the Rockets handle them pretty easily. Yeah, I like what you said about cohesion. With these teams it's the Rajon Rondo's had the opportunity to have most of the season with that team, and they still haven't figured it out. And you got on the other side with the Rockets, you got Howard coming back in, and Harden still just going off like crazy, playing his style of basketball. And I'd give big kudos to Dwight Howard for kind of stepping in, letting Harden take care of that, and he takes care of the defense and scores in the paint when he needs to.
Which is kind of the hallmark of a really good player, is someone who knows where they need to be and what they need to do to make it so their team wins. And those are the kind of things that some of these other teams, yeah, they're there. Yes, they've been winning, but it's not as pretty as you would like it to be.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's a lot to be said for understanding your role on the team. And that goes for that's true for all sports, but it's more important in basketball to set aside your ego, which is hard to do, obviously. You want to be that guy in the stat sheet racking it up like Harden on there, but it takes that's the cool thing about basketball is you need a couple of those star players, but you also need role players who understand what they're there for.
Well, and we talked about it earlier when we talked about the East Conference with LeBron James and Kevin Love. When you have discord within your team, it kind of makes everybody play a little worse. It just seems that way. So the best thing that could happen would be that they come in and play, very well, specifically Rondo and the rest of the team. But with those big egos, it's pretty tough sometimes.
Yeah, back to that Kevin Love situation. It slows down. It slows down the offense a little bit, right? If you're not sure where you're supposed to be, where you fit in, when you're supposed to be taking shots, when you're supposed to be passing the ball, if you don't understand what you're doing, in that scheme of the offense, it's hard to get things going. It's kind of like having that new V8 engine and everything's going fine, but that one piston's out of timing. It just kind of fouls up the whole system, right? It makes stuff lag a little bit. You're not performing the way you could if everything was timed.
Well, and with that being said, the Mavericks don't have a LeBron James to take up a lot of that slack. So, what are you going to do when you got pretty good players and not an outstanding player who's going to help you out?
Yeah, if Dirk is still your best option, if you're the Mavericks, that's probably not where you want to be when you're looking at playing against the Rockets. The Rockets are going to run it up and down the floor on you, and when they have to transition to a half-court offense or even a half-court defense, they can still get that done with Dwight Howard in there. So, yeah, you're right. I see this going 5 games and the Rockets getting a little rest before the next series.
Well, since we're talking about cohesion and we're talking about star players, I have one question for you. Is it going to be Pelicans or is it going to be Pelicans?
Well, you're talking the number 1 seeded Warriors taking on the 8 seeded Pelicans. I guess if I had to just answer that straight up, it's going to be the Pelicans. And after watching a little bit of what happened earlier today, I was gonna say this series maybe goes to 6, maybe, but after seeing what happened today, I think this is a 4-game sweep for the Warriors.
Yeah, and the Warriors have been playing so well, and going back to the cohesiveness, they just seem like a team who plays for each other and plays with a purpose, and doesn't really have the roles of who's going to be the star player. Yeah, they have Steph Curry out there who's lighting it up, but they all seem to be playing as a whole and as a team, not as singles.
Yeah, Steve Kerr has those guys understanding what their function is on the court. You've obviously got, and Curry's their unquestioned leader, but Curry doesn't have to play out of his mind all the time for that team to pull ahead in games. You got Klay Thompson, you got Harrison Barnes, Bogut, Draymond Green's in there. They all contribute well. Steph Curry running the point is able to facilitate the ball when he's not finding his shots, which this year seems like he never had that problem.
The guy made 77 straight 3-pointers in practice. That's insane.
Yeah, it's it's good that the Pelicans could take the step forward, and it's fun to see a bunch of these young guys get out there. When Omar Sheik is kind of your veteran on that starting lineup for the Pelicans, that kind of tells you something. He hasn't been around all that long. Still a young team with a lot of room left to grow, but I think they just ran into a kind of an unstoppable force right now.
So with that being said, I do have one question for you. We know that the Oklahoma City Thunder were knocked out of the playoffs tiebreaker-wise and this and that. Do you think that it would be a better game, Warriors at Pelicans or Warriors at Thunder?
I think the obvious answer to that is with the Thunder, right? Because you got Westbrook there playing out of his mind, and Curry doing the same thing. I think it'd be fun to watch those two go at it. But if the Thunder were going to depend on Russell Westbrook staying hot with his shot through the whole series, you're not going to win against Golden State doing that.
And that's just a theoretical. I mean, granted, they're not in, so we'll never get to see that game. But you know what? I think the Oklahoma City Thunder should have made it into the playoffs. Clearly they didn't. The Pelicans are in. But I see this going as a 4-0 sweep. I think the Warriors are just too tough for the Pelicans to overcome.
And we talk a lot. I'm guilty of it too, but so is everybody else. We talk a ton about Golden State and Steph Curry and Klay Thompson on offense. We don't give them enough credit for the defense they play. They were top-ranked defense in the beginning of the season. That fell off a little bit, and back at the end of the season, they were top-ranked defense again. So we got to give them credit. They play both ends of the floor. It's fun to watch their style of basketball. Still fast-paced, but they take care of the basics on both ends.
Well, it's tough to talk about their defense when you don't really notice their defense because they're scoring so many points a game. I mean, these guys are just knocking it down from, left and right. So, yeah, they do play very good defense. It's just overlooked because their offense is so good.
All right, so we've kind of gone through everything on both conferences. What's your predictions for the finals? Who are we going to see?
I'm going to go with the game that I really want to see in the finals. I'm hoping that the Warriors make it, and I'm hoping that the Cavs make it. I think that would be a good matchup for the final game. It'll be interesting to see how the Cavs go up against the Warriors and if they can pull that team together. I don't think it'll happen, but I think it would be a good game to watch.
All right, yeah, I agree with you. Out of the East, probably the Cavs. I think they'll come out of the East over the Bulls in the conference finals on that side. Out West, though, I'm gonna switch it up on you. And as great as Steph Curry has played, I can't count out the Spurs until they're out. And I think it's probably Golden State and San Antonio in the Western Conference Finals. And I think the old guys figure out a way to get it done. So I think we're going to probably see a Spurs-Cavs final. I think, man, that'd be great to see LeBron have to face the Spurs yet again in the finals. He got one up on him. They got him last year. And him back here in Cleveland playing against them again, that'll be really fun to watch, see if Duncan can go out on top.
Yeah, that's actually a really good matchup. I didn't really think that would be one to look at. But I will say this. The Western Conference is just so much better than the Eastern Conference this season. I think no matter what, it's going to be the West team that prevails. So it'll be a good game to watch. But whether it's the Spurs or the Warriors, I think they're both either one of them's coming out on top.
That's kind of interesting. So any of the teams come out of the West, and obviously not every team coming out of the West, but the teams we expect to probably be there at the end, you'd give them the edge over the Cavs in a matchup?
Yeah, especially with the problems that the Cavs are having with their team, Kevin Love, LeBron James, all this hoo-ha that's going on. I'm just not giving them the benefit of the doubt. LeBron James is probably one of the best NBA players out there, but him by himself can't take on a whole team of superstars.
I think that's the difference, though, with this Cavs team is I don't know if it's LeBron by himself. You got Kyrie Irving having a standout year, finally showing what he can do as long as LeBron James is the one running the court, calling the plays. On there, you got Mozgov in there who's contributing well, Shumpert, J.R. Smith. I don't think it's him alone. I actually think that, as good as the series, I think it goes 7 games, but I actually think the Cavs and LeBron probably win out if they're facing the Spurs in the finals. Golden State would kind of throw me for a loop because I think Golden State could probably take a pretty good run at knocking LeBron off from another title.
That's interesting. I would have never picked an Eastern Conference team to win, so it'll be interesting to see how our predictions come out.
All right, yeah, we'll definitely see what happens. It'll be fun to watch going forward. Let's get on our Homer segment real quick. Let's talk a little bit of Rockies baseball.
Well, Rockies baseball, the start of the season has been really good. We've been enjoying some good baseball. The Rockies right now are sitting at 7-3. Doing really good as far as it goes. I talked a little bit earlier about their starting lineups. The 5-man rotation they got right now, as I said before, is kind of shaky. I don't know how well they're going to be able to do if they keep pitching like they are. They haven't been terrible, but they haven't been good. So it's one of those things you have to look at and go, what can we do to make this rotation better? 2.90 ERA. Once again, you can't argue with that. It's a pretty good ERA. Jorge De La Rosa is coming back on Monday, starting at home. Great Coors Field pitcher. We really like to see him out here. That'll help out a lot. The downside is you play 81 games at home, and he only starts 1 out of 5. So, that's only going to help out a little bit. We need these other guys in the back end of the rotation to start picking up a little more weight and bringing them back into the game.
That brings something I wanted to ask you. In the middle of the week, I was thinking, what's your take on the way the Rockies manage their pitching staff? They have them on that hard pitch count, and so if a guy goes 4 innings, and I think that happened a couple of days ago, a guy goes 4 innings, maybe 5, and he's at that pitch count, they go to the pen right away.
Well, I don't like it and I don't dislike it. I mean, it's one of those things. Walt Weiss has been doing a good job. The problem is the bullpen has been lights out this year. They've been pitching so well that, yeah, a guy gets up there and pitches, and why wouldn't you pull him out if he's starting to struggle because the bullpen has been doing so good? The problem with that is you're going to start burning out your bullpen, and then they're going to start to struggle too. So what ultimately I think it's good, but I would like to see the starting pitchers start to stay out just a little bit longer, and regardless of the pitch count, just so that you can ease up on that pen just a little bit.
All right, so when does this all fall apart for the Rockies? When does this pitching situation take its toll and we start seeing it have a major impact on the season?
You know, it's the beginning of the season. It's the first month. Notoriously, the Rockies do really well in April, and then they start to fall off into May and June. If this pitching stays the way it is, I think we're going to see a little bit of the same. Come May, they're going to start to fall off. The pitchers are going to start to struggle. The bats aren't going to stay hot as they've been all year long. You're going to have a few dry spells, and if you don't have the pitching to cover that up, then you're going to start to lose games, sometimes 4 to 6 at a time, and then, it all starts to fall apart from there. Now, what do you do about that? I don't know. They don't really have a huge set of prospects, that they can pull up from. We got John Gray down there in AAA, and he's been one of the talks about, is he coming up, isn't he coming up? It'll be interesting to see if he does, but I don't know. I'm a little worried about this starting lineup, and can they perform into the later months of the season, June, July?
Yeah, and the sad part is I don't know if having pitching prospects for the Rockies helps them out at all. I don't think you hit on it. I don't think the starting pitching goes deep enough into a game. I'd like to see Rockies starting pitching being able to go into 6 innings minimum. I think that should be a benchmark for them. And I know that wears on your starters, but when you're working with a 5-man rotation instead of the 4, I think that extra rest day can make up for that a little bit.
Well, you know what's really killing me about the whole thing is all the argument is pitchers can't pitch at Coors Field. Coors Field is such a hard place to pitch. Well, that's fine, but they play a ton of games on the road, and the pitchers aren't doing any better there either. Now, they did really well in San Francisco last week. The Dodgers, we saw one game. They lost the first game. They're playing again tonight. So we'll see how Jordan Lyles comes out. But we just need to be more solid in the pitching front. And if we can do that, great. If not, then the bats and the defense are going to have to step it up. The one good part is the defense has been playing so good. And let's face it, you got Nolan Arenado, Gold Glove. You got Troy Tulowitzki, Gold Glove. You got DJ LeMahieu, Gold Glove. And you got Justin Morneau and Willeen Rosario. I'll touch on Willeen Rosario in a little bit. You'll hear what I have to say about him. But as long as the defense can hold up, I think we still have a chance. But those guys got to stay healthy, and we got to get these pitchers on the right track.
Okay, end of the season. Who's the Rockies' closer?
I think it's definitely going to be Adam Ottavino. He was just recently named the closer. I think they wisely pulled LaTroy Hawkins out of that role. Everything he was throwing was flat. He's 42 years old. You know what? He's a great pitcher. I just don't know that he has what it takes to be the closer anymore. And let's face it, the stuff that Ottavino has been throwing is just absolutely nasty. I mean, those sliders he's been throwing are just insane. And I think he looks like he likes the role. It's almost like he's having a lot of fun with it. And the Rockies look like they're having a lot of fun with the game right now. And ultimately, that's what they need to do. Not only do they need to play well, but they need to play like they're having fun. Because when you're having fun, winning comes a little bit easier when you're just kind of going through the motions and playing the game. But Adam Ottavino has just been throwing so well. I wouldn't say that he gets pulled from that role.
Okay, yeah, I like that. Watching him pitch, I think you're right. He's out there having fun with it, and I think he kind of relishes in trying to close out these games for the Rockies. So I want to switch over to Baby Bull. That was another thing I wanted to ask you, and you just kind of hit on it, and you just got a really sad face. And so let's hear what you have to say on that.
You know what? I was watching the game last night, and Willeen Rosario was playing first base for Justin Morneau, and he had two plays that were they were bad. It doesn't seem like he's really got the idea of how to play first base yet. And so when you don't have Justin Morneau in the lineup, and that happens fairly often because he gets a few more days off than most, Willeen just doesn't have the soft hands. He doesn't have the glove, and he's too new at that position. I don't think that he is the best decision for first base. It's tough because his bat is so good that they like to have him in the lineup, and I agree with that. He does have a good bat. But when it comes down to it, if you don't have the defense, then you're not going to win the game. If he's over there making errors like he made last night, then the team's going to struggle, and it might be a better decision to pull him off of first base, but we'll see.
Is he trade bait?
He could be. I don't know that he's number one, simply because you've got Cargo and Tulo on there as the people who are hot prospects for trading. But I do think that you could get something good for the Willeen Rosario if you traded him. So I would say, yeah. I mean, if something comes up and you could get a good deal out of that, then I wouldn't mind seeing him being traded.
All right, what's a good deal to you? What's worth getting rid of Baby Bull?
Give me some either relievers or give me a starting pitcher. That's we were just talking. The one thing the Rockies need is they need somebody who's going to come in and throw a solid game every single time he's out. He's not going to be an inconsistent guy who's up one day, down the other. Look at Jeremy Guthrie, who's pitching for the Royals right now. They brought him in thinking he was going to be a regular guy, and he threw one good game and then pretty much sucked it up the rest of the time. But now he's back in Kansas City, and he's actually throwing somewhat decent again. So, I don't know. Maybe it's just a Rockies pitching thing. They've got a curse on them or something. It could be just the stigma of Coors Field. Who knows? But give me a solid reliever or a solid starting pitcher, and I'm up for a trade for him.
Yeah, I think you hit on it a little bit earlier with him. He's a good bat. I think that makes him easy trade bait to an American League team. And if you can get some, I agree with you 100%. If you can get some relief pitching to beef up that bullpen, because obviously the starting rotation is not going to be out there too long. So if you need to beef up that bullpen and give yourself a chance in the middle of that game, if the bats stay hot and you can hold a good lead on there, I think that's pretty much all you can ask for from this team right now.
Now the good thing is we've got this new kid, Scott Oberg, who has been pitching very well. Just had his major league debut the other day. Actually got the win, which was kind of cool for him, getting a win in his first game ever. But he's pitching very well. He's new, so we don't know exactly what he's going to do. But he's a good middle-of-the-game guy, 6th inning, 7th inning. Unfortunately, that's generally where our relievers are coming in, is right there in the middle, which is not where you want them to be. But he's definitely a good one. And then you got LaTroy Hawkins, who they've been pulling in the later innings, which is a veteran guy who he generally gets stuff done when he needs to, just not in the closer role. And then you got Rafi Betancourt, who just came in late in his career, had Tommy John surgery, bounced back. I don't know that their relievers are that bad. They're actually pretty good. So I would be voting more for a starting pitcher. But if you're going to do it, you just need to get someone who's worth it. So all my ranting and raving about the Rockies, I could do that all day. They're my team. I like to see them play. And what they're doing. But I do have a question for you about the Nuggets. Their season is over, but what do you see happening with the coaching situation and Melvin Hunt and that?
All the reports have him as being considered as a serious candidate for the position. I think that's more to do with the Nuggets trying to say and do the right things. Yeah, at the end of the day, Melvin Hunt did not have a winning record coming down the stretch, and they played some really good teams down the stretch, so I wouldn't put that all on him. But I think the Nuggets are trying to make a splash with a big name, and Melvin Hunt right now is not that name. I think he's going to be a great assistant coach on another team, and he might even get a shot at a head coaching job. Probably not this year. There's only 2 vacancies left in the league, and I don't think Melvin Hunt's getting a shot at either one of those.
Well, you mentioned something about the record. It was kind of interesting to me. They had such a bump when Brian Shaw got fired and he came up. They won, 6 out of 8 or something like that. And then all of a sudden they started playing bad again. So I was a little interested to see how that played out.
Yeah, I wouldn't say they played bad. Like I said, they played some good teams on there. There's a lot to be said for Melvin Hunt being able to get those players to play the way they wouldn't with Brian Shaw, right? To see him play with energy, see him running up and down the court. And part of that's coaching style. Melvin Hunt, one of those guys that do what they do, run up and down the floor, play fast-paced, full-court basketball on there, whereas Brian Shaw was more of a half-court guy, and that just didn't fit.
Do you think that it was kind of a sign of his inexperience and maybe some of the things he needs to learn before he becomes a head coach?
Yeah, there's some stuff to be said for that, but I think a lot of it falls on the players. If you gave Melvin Hunt the job, you should expect 2 or 3 building years out of him to see what he can put together roster-wise to match the way he wants his team to play basketball. And I think there's no risk in that, to be honest with you. I think if the Nuggets gave him a shot, gave him 3 years to figure it out and see where the team's going, that would be great. And if at the end of those 3 years things aren't going well, you didn't spend a ton of money to keep him as the coach, and you go out and see what's out there after that.
One of the names that I've been hearing throwing out there the last couple weeks is Mike D'Antoni. What do you think about him coming in?
How many times does this guy have to get a job in this league and prove that the way he runs his team doesn't work, right? And what's funny about him is he just kept falling into better jobs. He went from the Suns, and he got the Knicks gig, and then from the Knicks he got the Lakers gig. Like, this guy's just he's kind of like who's the coach that got fired from USC? Lane Kiffin. He's like that guy. For some reason he gets fired and he gets a better job at a better place. I just don't understand how many times this guy's going to get a shot. I can see what the Nuggets are thinking. He's that run and gun style coach, but I think there needs to be balance. Melvin Hunt had the Nuggets playing that style of basketball, but with a little bit of defense added, something D'Antoni's proven time and time again he can't get.
Yeah, it was kind of a funny name to come out. That's kind of why I asked you the question. I don't think that D'Antoni's going to be a good coach prospect for the team. I personally think they should bring back George Karl. Just saying.
Yeah, that ship has sailed. He's over there in Sacramento, and they're gonna build towards being a contender within the next couple years. Yeah, I'd love to see Melvin Hunt get a shot at this job. I just don't think it's going to happen.
I was going to throw this one at you here as kind of one of the last questions we got for the day. Kind of maybe catch you off guard a little bit. But what are your thoughts on Patrick Waugh as a coach for the Avalanche? I think he was just absolutely outstanding, and I'm really happy that he's the coach.
Well, we can tie that in on something else that I was going to bring up and forgot about. First of all, I'm surprised you're talking a little bit of hockey. I kind of like that with the playoffs going on. Yeah, Patrick Waugh is outstanding, and I think having Forsberg in the front office there, getting the old crew back together, kind of in the model that the Broncos did, bringing Elway in as vice president of football operations. I think that's going to work well down the road. I love listening to Patrick Waugh talk about his team. He's upfront. He's honest. When they don't play well, he tells you exactly why they didn't play well. And a lot of the times, he'll just flat out tell you they didn't have the heart and didn't want to win the game. I like seeing that kind of stuff out of a coach. I think where that ties in with the Nuggets is there's been a little bit of talk about maybe bringing a guy like Chauncey Billups into the organization, teaching him how to run the business and letting him have a little bit of control over the Nuggets. It's kind of funny to see in Denver to see that model kind of start to flow into all models of the team. Even when you look at the Rockies, bringing Walt Weiss back to manage the team, player for them for a long time, to see that model kind of spread through Denver is interesting. I think Chauncey Billups would be a great guy to have in that front office. You can teach him a little bit about the business side of it because he's player minded, right? He wants to get paid. He needs to figure out how to manage the payroll and the cap on there, but I think it'd be fun to see something like that happen with the Nuggets.
Well, it's funny because I do like that model. I was really happy when they brought Walt Weiss in as the manager of the Rockies. I really like seeing the old players that I grew up watching coming back and being a part of the team. Chauncey Billups would be one of them, and he's a great guy. I think he has a lot to bring to the team, and I think they should seriously bring him in there. Patrick Waugh is another one. Joe Sakic, Forsberg, all those guys coming in for the Avalanche. It wasn't a bad season. They didn't make it into the playoffs, but I think that we can be optimistic about the Avalanche in the next season, and I think Patrick Waugh is going to do it right and get them straightened out.
Yeah, when you look at that model of building your front office, Peyton Manning wouldn't be here if John Elway wasn't in that front office. I think having a guy like Chauncey Billups in there makes Denver a little bit more of a destination spot than it is right now. I think part of that's going to be getting the right coaching staff in. And I don't think you can look at the Avalanche and say that formula isn't working for them either. Now, what's interesting about it too, though, is the Avalanche and the Broncos doing this. They bring that culture in, and they lend credibility to the team. But we've seen both of them fall short of their expectations. It'd be interesting to see if that model produces that all the time, or if just something that we got to work through.
Well, and that begs the other question: is when you bring in people that that were part of the team, and the things you start to fall under expectations, then you start to wonder: is it because that guy used to be part of the team? It starts to bring in that argument of is this the right move, or should we bring in somebody from the outside?
Yeah, and to some degree it can hinder you and give ammo for your critics. We hear a lot locally about maybe John Elway needs help evaluating talent. Maybe he's not all he's cracked up to be, picking the right players. And the last couple of seasons they've fallen well short of the expectation, which is winning that trophy. And that's kind of fallen back on him. He does not have a great record in the draft right now. A lot of their key player pickups have been all off free agency, but I don't think it hurts. I'm a big culture guy. I think having the right culture goes a long way to winning, and if that takes bringing in old players who understand what your team is about, that understand a little bit of the history and respect it, I think that's a win for everybody.
Well, with that being said, I think that to that point, Gary Kubiak, who is under that same model of bringing in people who are part of the team, I think a lot of the success problems that the Broncos have had in the last couple seasons were attributed to John Fox. I don't think John Fox was not a good coach. He was kind of the product of being in the right place at the right time, and he rode that out until he couldn't ride it anymore, and now he's in Chicago. So if it works or if it doesn't, we can't put it all on that one instance, because that was just a case of let's see what Gary Kubiak's going to do this year, and if they go out and win the Super Bowl, then we can say, hey, it works. If he doesn't, then we'll have to rejudge it from there.
Yeah, John Fox is definitely more of a figurehead, more of a hands-off type coach for an organization. And Kubiak, it's been fun watching the players talk about him, especially ones that have played on his defenses before specifically. Talk about how he is totally hands-on and he expects everything to be done his way. Every play he draws up, you run it the way he wants it. you run the routes the way he wants it. Everything gets done the way that he writes it down. So definitely a little bit more hands-on, and maybe that's what it's going to take to get Peyton Manning to focus in a little bit and play as a team player.
Well, and once again, speaking to the culture aspect, half the people that they've pulled in on the off season via free agency and such, half of them were from Baltimore, where Gary Kubiak was formerly. So, it's interesting to see how much once you buy in, you just buy in, and culture is the way to go.
Yeah, we'll see what happens over the next year or so. Probably one or two more runs for the Broncos. We'll see what the Nuggets do with their coaching situation on there. With that, guys, we're probably going to try to wrap it up here. Chris, what you got?
Oh, man, it's been a good third episode. We have a lot of fun doing these. We definitely like to hear your guys' feedback. Once again, you can follow us on @FRCowboys or @Sporting Banjos on Twitter. Check us out on YouTube. We'll have the video posted up. And we once again like to give a shout out to DInfinityX @DInfinityX for doing all of our video work, posting and whatnot. And hopefully, once again, we'll keep getting better at this, and appreciate you guys listening.
Yeah, thanks, John. We'll see you guys next week.
Have a good one.